Well, hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. We are gathered today to learn a little bit more about Office 365 and specifically how to turn this into a business model for partners going beyond the license, not just selling Office 365 itself, but all those other services that really complement the service to be a more holistic, comprehensive solution for your customer and a better source of revenue for you as a business. Today, I'm very honored to have joining us. We have Harry Brailsford from SMB Nation and O365 Nation, as well as Robert Crane, kind enough to join us from the other hemisphere and a very, very different time zone than we are today. So he's joining us in the middle of the evening, the middle of the night. So we certainly appreciate that. First off, let's go over to Harry. We're going to turn the gavel over so he can tell us a little bit about his take on what's going on with Office 365 in the world of Microsoft and tell us about an event that's coming up soon. Harry.
Okay. Hey, can you hear me okay, Greg?
Absolutely.
All right. Hey, good morning, Greg and Robert, and really good morning, Robert. Over in Australia, and good afternoon. Greg, good afternoon, actually, to you across the time zones.
Yes, sir.
So appreciate the opportunity to stop by and have a little chat. So, here's the deal. In terms of the momentum for Office 365, that is, to be honest, it's kind of becoming yesterday's news. There, a year ago and up until, I would say July at WPC, the Microsoft Worldwide Partner Conference, everybody would ask, how's Office 365 doing? What are the numbers? And there are numbers, but it's kind of like saying with the Windows 10 release, there's 76 million installations of Windows 10 2 weeks later. I mean, these are kind of, it's kind of a given, right? It's kind of like non-numbers. And the point I'm trying to make is that no one disputes the momentum, the fact that the train has rapidly left the station of Office 365. It's no longer about is Office 365 going to make it? The numbers are ridiculous. So one I saw fly by the other day as an example is in the enterprise. The enrollments, the subscriptions are up 300% year over year. And so, Greg, very quickly you can get into sort of preaching to the choir, a love fest. Boy, isn't Office 365 great? But really, I don't think anyone disputes that anymore, right? We're kind of past that. And I'm happy to, and in fact, I will. I'll kind of use the Labor Day weekend to kind of dig deeper and get an updated blog on some of the specificity. But with numbers that are so large and so fast, the conversation shifts more about kind of what you're talking about today. I have a current blog up, and I just finished one this morning over at O365 Nation about now what do we do? And one of the big opportunities is to be a gap filler and to provide Office 365 solutions that Microsoft cannot or will not provide or should not provide. And that can be a very handsome business at the MSP, CSP level, the ISV level, or even the OEM level. So that is where I see the conversation shifting. I don't think we need to impress upon the investors anymore that Office 365 is here and it's a hit. Great. Does that make sense? I mean, I think the narrative's starting to change, brother.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful thing, and you've actually come to the right place because that's exactly what we're talking about today. Not only what is 365, but what is it not, and where can we add some value? So that's a good point.
That's right. And so, in any event, quickly, Greg, because I know it's a full agenda, shout out to the jam session. So we're doing a 3-day jam session on 365, Win 10, and a tip of the hat to Azure up in Redmond. And we found this is fantastic. This is a fantastic get together. You two will be there as speakers. It's your chance to be a blue badge for a weekend and come up on the Microsoft Redmond campus and groove with the product teams. Greg, as you well know, there's nothing like the personal introductions to the team, and you can pick up the phone and make a call and good things happen. It is technically our 13th year of the conference, so here yesterday, today, and tomorrow. But this is the second year we're really focused on 365. And then I think what makes us unique, and I'll kind of end on this, totally want to respect your time, but Greg, I'm a geek at heart. So I literally today I'm reinstalling Win 10 on a extra laptop for Marianne, literally. And so we always do best when we kind of stick to the knitting of a technical focus first. And then yes, there's obviously a business conversation. This year we're focused on the business conversation with lead generation, lead scoring, dynamic predictive lead scoring. It's a field called data science, and so we're just going to pick one specific area to have the business conversation. And I think, Greg, what that does finally is it allows people choice. That there's many conferences out there. Some are only business, MSP moneymakers. Some are only technical, but those tend to be at the enterprise level. So we think we've carved out a nice niche. Look forward to seeing everybody there. And give me a call direct if you have any questions or concerns. And Greg, I better hand the talking stick back over to you, man.
Well, thanks, Harry. And I will say that as a first-time attendee last year, it was very impressive. I walked away with lots of knowledge, lots of new contacts that I continue to stay in touch with, until now. And Robert actually happens to be one of them as a featured speaker last year, and I know he has quite a full docket this year as well of sessions. So I'm certainly happy to be a part of that agenda. And with this, I'm going to say thank you, Harry and Robert. I think it makes probably pretty good sense for me to pass things over to you, so you can tell us from your side of the world what 365 looks like, and how you're helping your partners and the channel, and just really where this opportunity is for the consumer.
Great. So thanks, Greg. Thanks, Harry. It's a pleasure to be with you all. It is a little bit early here in the morning, but I understand that, and I think that it's a bit of a metaphor for the way the world now works. We're in a world where the services now are running 24/7. We're in a world where all customers expect support, expect systems to be up 24/7, and that's a major load for a lot of providers to be able to do, and that's why leveraging the stuff that Microsoft does with Office 365 and the big providers is the way it's going. There's just so much opportunity out there, I see, amongst the cloud, that it's important that people take advantage of it. So I think probably the incorrect message that came across from people like Microsoft initially was that it is an all or nothing opportunity, but that's certainly very different from what is a successful business model. Most people make the most of their opportunity by doing a hybrid, so still doing the on-premise stuff, but importantly incorporating some of the cloud-based systems. And that also means the big challenge for a lot of people is to be able to retool, to retrain, to look at the other opportunities that are out there. So to start off with, I think what I see out there in the market from the majority of people is that most providers these days are just simply doing email migrations. They're doing exactly what they did in the good old days of when every 3 years, roughly, people would come along, they'd buy new hardware, they'd ask for their information to be moved from one server to the new server, and then there'd be some sort of maintenance going forward. So if you think about it, if you talk to your peers, what you'll find is the vast majority of people are still doing the same old business model. What they're doing is they're taking information from an on-premise server, typically a mail server, and then they're doing a migration through a number of different means directly into something like Office 365. But the unfortunate thing is that's a limiting business model in the fact that typically this is probably going to be the last email migration the clients will do. So once that's over, once that's complete, where do you go from there? What still needs to be done? And there are a lot of challenges around doing email migrations, but there's so much more opportunity that, again, I think partners aren't taking advantage of. So, for example, when I go and talk to resellers, I ask them, okay, so email migration, there's a great opportunity there. There's revenue to be made. There's the migration costs. But beyond that, are you taking advantage of things like enabling archiving? Now you've got, effectively, with many Office 365 plans, you've got unlimited archiving. This means that clients, for good or for bad, can now store as much information as they want in the cloud, in their email. How are you handling that? How is that being archived? How is the client being informed about what options are available when it comes to archiving? What about legal hold? Legal hold is the ability to retain information for e-discovery, retain information independent of what the customer does. You know, a lot of businesses have the requirement, they've been burnt by employees that are disgruntled perhaps, and then leave and then delete all their emails as they walk out the door. So again, this is a feature of some of the Office 365 plans, and another great reason to be selling that product. But again, even people who have bought plans that include legal hold, I rarely see it enabled until it's too late, until the until the customer needs that information retained. So again, understanding what legal hold is and enabling it up front. What about data loss prevention? So data loss prevention allows you to stop information leaking out of a site. So, for example, you can prevent credit cards, you can prevent driver's licenses, you can run policies that conform to different compliance laws around the world, and you can make sure that the customer and the way they transact their information is compliant with the laws in that region. You can also customize that to your own needs, but that customization does require somebody with IT skills, does require understanding the customer's needs when it comes to compliance. What documents need to be checked? How do they need to handle it? Do they need to be warned? Does the person sending that out get one warning? How does it work? Again, very rarely have I seen this implemented within a business. Retention policies. What happens to email after it becomes 6 months old? Is it automatically archived? Is it deleted? Is it moved to another mailbox? How is that handled? This is a conversation that is relatively easy to have with customers because, again, the data is growing and growing and growing, but, again, is it just piling up in a corner? We all know that information is great, can be very effective for a business, but at some point it becomes overload and actually starts attracting and making people less productive. So again, how is the retention handled? And with a product like Office 365, you can now move information across an organization and apply policies so it's consistent for every single user. Again, what about compliance? What about users who may be sending incorrect or inappropriate information outside the business? How is the compliance for the organization running? Are they in an industry like the medical industry that needs to conform to things like HIPAA? Is that being in place? How is that being maintained? All of this sort of stuff is not yet generally being done. E-discovery. We live in an unfortunate world where litigation is far more common, becoming far more a requirement. Think about it today. If you had to go and produce information to settle a legal case for your customer, how would you obtain all that electronic information on an on-premise server? For every document, for every email, every piece of correspondence, you would have to provide that to the lawyers that are requesting that. Products like Office 365 allow you to do that quickly and easily. But again, not many people even talk to their customers about it until it's too late or until it's an urgent matter. And I would also point out to you in this case is if you did need e-discovery services, where would you go? Most people would go to a top 5 accounting organization which would charge them thousands and thousands of dollars to perform e-discovery. I would see that there's an opportunity for someone in the channel, for a group of people to become the e-discovery experts. What are the laws? How is it handled? How do you set it up in Office 365? How do you execute it? What's the assistance that other resellers may need when it comes to e-discovery? But again, we don't see a lot of people in the market doing e-discovery. What about security? What about the configuring the information services so that they ensure that they don't have malware, that the spam is controlled, all that sort of stuff. Again, what I see is that most people simply migrate to something like Office 365 and then they do nothing more. They leave the defaults, then if there's an issue, then they have to sit down and try and work it out and try and find a PowerShell script or a blog that runs it. What's the issue with being proactive, going out there, developing a script, working out what all the knobs and the dials need to be before you do the migration, so that when you actually do the migration of the email, you can run a PowerShell script that applies a consistent configuration for each user across the organization. Again, most people are simply just accepting the defaults. They're not actually digging deeper into what the product can do when it comes to email. And what about reporting? Now with Office 365, you've got information in there. We have integration coming to a product like Power BI that can produce dashboards as good as anything that you can buy commercially. So again, out of the box, we're seeing the ability in all these tools being made available. And again, you don't see resellers taking advantage of them, building a reporting model, building something that they can then show to their customers. And the good thing is once they do that for one customer, they can replicate that service quickly and easily across to every other organization that they deal with. Again, so reporting is such an important thing, but again, it's rare that I see resellers actually going in there, tweaking them, working out how to get the reports, pulling the details down into something like Excel, massaging it, sending it into Power BI, and then giving the end user, a better experience. And you know what? All the stuff that I've just talked about there, is just about email. Okay, so again, when I go back to that first slide, where I see is most resellers are simply moving emails from an on-premise server to Office 365, and they're not providing any value add. They're not taking advantage of the additional services Office 365 is providing them, and they're not building a service around that. You should be able to go to your customer, even after you just do an email migration, and said, would you like us to configure archiving? Would you like us to configure legal hold, data loss prevention, retention policies, compliance, tick, 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 all the way down, and then charge A, money for setting that up, and then B, charge money for retaining that, because a lot of this stuff like DLP, retention policies are going to change over time. So if we look at just the email component, look at all those additional features, look at all those additional opportunities, look at all those additional ways to make revenue that most providers are not taking advantage of. Okay, so that's just email, right? So that's just simply email, which is what I see so used by so many providers as being the most common tool that they use to use with their customers. But let's talk about Azure. Azure has part of Office 365, the identity model's built on with that, but as we know, Azure has the ability to do virtual machines. Azure has the ability to run SQL databases, to run websites, to do all sorts of really fantastic tools basically from a data center. So more and more clients are having this need to be agile and needing to spin up, spin down servers and need to access SQL data on the fly to build interactive websites. Again, the ability here is the integration with Azure and Office 365 is already there, is already running, it's already in a Microsoft space. You can extend your on-premise infrastructure with a site-to-site VPN into Azure. So it's not an all or nothing. You don't have to move everything to the cloud. You can just extend your environment. So if the client needs a new RDS server, terminal server, why not implement that in Azure and give their customer that flexibility? Just because it's moving to Azure doesn't mean that people don't need IT expertise when it comes to networking, VPNs, all that sort of stuff is still required. So all the skills that people have on-premise translate perfectly into something like Azure. But again, most people are very hesitant to do it. They can't see how they make a business model because they're so focused generally on the reseller model, which is I buy a product from a vendor, I add some margin, and then I simply resell it. That just doesn't work anymore. You have to add value. What's the value you can add? And if you look at something like Azure, Azure is a product that is even deeper and richer than Office 365, and again, is something that can be added so much value to. The one of the big features of Azure that allows people to do this, and it's a direct translation, is Azure Active Directory. Okay, so we're talking about on-premise. Everybody's generally, resellers are familiar with how Active Directory works, how we have users, how we have policies. Well, guess what? That's being extended into the Office 365 world. There are a number of features that are available free with Azure and Office 365 that, again, you could configure to add extra value. Then you can add services like Azure AD Premium that gives you full password write back. So again, we use something like DirSync or Azure AD Connect to synchronize our local AD to the cloud, but that's a one-way sync out of the box. But if you add Azure AD Premium, you get the ability to potentially sync passwords back to on-premise. So again, if customers need that, there's that option. The tool's already there for you to do that. One of the big tools that I'm very, very keen on and don't see a lot of implementation out there is a tool like Yammer. So we face a world that is also changing in the way that work is completed. Most people these days look at email, and that's the only way to communicate. If you have a look at what the younger generation, look at the millennials who are coming into the workforce, look at the people walking around the city, what are they doing? They spend the majority of their time peering into their little screen and using a social network. One of the things I tell people is you can tell your age basically by answering the question as to what you first look at in the morning. If you look at your emails first thing, then you're old school, you're living in the past. But if you check a social media the first thing when you get up, that means that you're living in this new age where it's all about social, it's all about sharing. The information within an organization has value, and locking it up inside or siloing it inside emails is not a good move. And again, Yammer gives the reseller the opportunity to go and talk to the customer and say, look at this fantastic tool, look at what we can do by sharing this, helping them set it up, helping them manage it, helping them make it work for their organization. One of the other tools that I'm really, really keen on is Power BI. So sit down and think about what is the most common application on a user's desktop. It'd be pretty, be pretty certain that every desktop you see has Excel on it. You'd be pretty certain that every user's fairly comfortable with using Excel. They understand numbers. So Power BI allows them to take that expertise, take that knowledge, and move it into a graphical display. You can take information from spreadsheets, present it graphically inside dashboards. So this means that you can build business intelligence dashboards. This means you can build business intelligence solutions, and then basically have the clients reveal that information. Now, you can build that and provide that service because most times, as we find, clients aren't particularly skilled with tools like Excel. They know the basics, but they don't know anything deep. They don't know how to run macros. They don't know how to do pivot tables. So there's an opportunity. Again, part of it is if you don't know this sort of stuff and you would ask around others, you'll probably find not many other people do. So whenever you hear the fact or whenever you see the opportunity that other people aren't in that market, it should resonate with you and say, look, here's an opportunity for me to get in and make some money, even though it will require maybe a bit of retooling. But if you're an Excel person, if you're a numbers person, get into it. There's the opportunity. Delve, again, is another way of working with information. So many times I see people, when they go and do Office 365 demos, they never ever mention Delve. So Delve is a single pane of glass that allows users to look across all their information sources, across their SharePoint sites, across their emails, across their Yammer, across their OneDrive for Business. Okay, there's probably not a lot you can configure in Delve. I agree with that. But again, there's a lot helping customers understand this new world of social, making it optimized, helping them work with it in their organization. This is the way that organizations and the future of collaboration is. It's all about tools like Delve. If you have customers that struggle moving around SharePoint or don't perhaps get OneDrive for Business or, again, are locking up information inside something like their emails, again, using something like Delve, which is a differentiator from any other product in the market, allows that information to be unlocked and displayed much regularly. And again, is a product that is on a very fast 10 when it comes to improvements and updates. We're moving into a social world, and Delve is a great example of a tool that, again, is being missed by resellers because they don't see what opportunity it has. It certainly has, and in many cases, the best way to understand that is make sure that you use it yourself. And obviously the last one, which I'm a bit partial to, is obviously SharePoint. SharePoint's a big struggle for a lot of resellers and therefore a big struggle for a lot of their customers. If there's one technology in Office 365 that you must know, apart from email, it's SharePoint. SharePoint is surfaced in OneDrive for Business. SharePoint is surfaced in Team sites. SharePoint is surfaced with Office 365 video. It's such a huge, important part of Microsoft's strategy going forward. But again, I see most resellers are very hesitant to get involved with it. What a lot of them do is simply drag and drop a document into a document library and then leave it there. They drop gigs and gigs of data and give the user a bad experience. Remember, SharePoint is all about collaboration. It's not pure storage. So that means you can build a solution. You can help a client, but that means that you need to understand their business. You need to be able to understand and answer the business questions that they have in their organization that allow them to be more productive. And the strange thing is once you solve that, once you answer that for at least one customer, you're going to be able to take that knowledge and move that forward to the next one. Now, obviously, this is a very different model with these sort of products from what life used to be. Again, you can't just buy a product, add some margin, and then resell it. All of these products here, from Yammer to Azure to Delve to SharePoint, all require some intellectual property added into these products to have the knowledge poured into it and customized to an end user's solution. That's great because that means that you can now differentiate yourself by your own IP that you invest in these sort of products and roll out to customers. A lot of these cases like SharePoint, Power BI can be templated and then reused over and over again. So what we're trying to illustrate here is the fact that most people just do email. Why do they just do email? Because they haven't looked at these other products. They haven't invested the time to come up to speed and work out how these opportunities work for their customers. Now, the downside to that is that if a customer has an Office 365 suite with all of these products, sooner or later, they're going to find these products and they're going to want to configure it, or they're going to want a solution based on there. If you're not solving problems using the full range of the Office 365 suite, chances are that's then a wedge for somebody else to come into the business and solve a problem using Power BI, blow the customer away, and then potentially leverage that into taking over the client completely. So again, make sure that you move beyond the email, you look at all these products and look at them all in a bit more depth. So let's just take a quick look at Azure, for example. I hope that you realize that you can create a single sign-on, a web single sign-on portal with Azure. What that means is the world is becoming more and more web-based. That means they have cloud-based accounting, they have cloud-based HR systems, they have cloud-based whatever these days. But with Azure, in Office 365 out of the box, you can create a single portal that they log into, that they can get to not only their Office 365, but they can also get to these web applications that you configure as an administrator, you maintain, you set up, and you customize. Therefore, for example, if they have one Twitter account that all the users have to update, they then don't need to change the password when one of these users then leaves. They can build Twitter into this portal. That account is then accessed via their Office 365 login. So if they do leave the organization, they get their Office 365 password changed. That means they no longer have access to Twitter directly. So again, plenty of opportunities to build this single sign-on portal out of the box. You can also brand Office 365. Very rarely do I see any reseller or any client's tenants that have actually been customized. It may seem like a trivial thing, but it has a very big impact for the client. If their logo appears when they log into Office 365, it certainly weds them to the service much more. And again, it's not necessarily a once-off. You can do branding, you can change updates, you can do all this sort of stuff on a regular basis. Once you get it right, rolling it out as a service across all the customers gives you a point of differentiation and gives you the ability to also tie the client more closely to you. What about the enhanced reporting? What about the ability to determine who's logged in where the security issues are? Again, Azure gives you additional reports above and beyond what you get with Office 365. But again, I very rarely see them used or implemented. And what about a self-service password reset portal? So many clients these days, the most common request these days is generally, oh, I forgot my password, I need it to be reset. This is a huge time suck again, for a lot of resellers and MSPs. But what happens if you could set up the fact so that the user could go in and do these password resets without them needing to make a call, without them needing to log a ticket and wait whatever time period for you to get back to them? Okay, so that sort of stuff could be set up automatically. And don't forget, as I mentioned, you can extend Azure to VMs, VPNs, websites, all this stuff you're familiar with. If customers have a website, maybe they can do it in Azure. If they're doing site-to-site VPN, again, it can be done through Azure. If they do site replication, that can be done through Azure. So again, we can extend and add on to what's already there. So here's the one example I'll give you. This is an Office 365 standard login that every user generally sees every day. So my question to you is, did you know that you can take it from a display of that to a customized branding solution as you see there, which I've done with one of my tenants. Now, that image on the left-hand side could perhaps be a bitmap that has your support login details, how to log a support call, news, update, information. It's limitless. It's up to your imagination what can be done. So again, let's talk about Yammer. Yammer is one of those tools that gives you an opportunity that a lot of organizations have never seen. It's all about being social, bringing that social experience, sharing that information within the organization. Eliminate those distribution lists. Why does everybody CC everybody else? Why isn't it out in somewhere like Yammer that makes it discoverable for everybody? It's all about collaboration now. It's all about sharing the information. That's hard for a lot of customers, but here's an opportunity. Show them the benefits of making the information public and also making it shareable. Okay? And make the information shareable, which means it's discoverable. It means it's much easier to get to. And it involves everybody in the business from the highest to the lowest. And you can also use Yammer to communicate with people outside your organization. Okay, don't forget that many businesses require this with contractors, with customers. They're sending emails backwards and forwards. But as an example, I hope all of you are involved in the Office 365 network, which is set up by Microsoft. This involves resellers getting in there, asking questions, and this network has recently topped 75,000 users. So that means 75,000 people in this little Yammer network alone that are interacting, sharing information, helping each other, and providing ongoing support around the Office 365 product. Now, everybody, I use the distribution list, I like email. Yeah, that's fine, but you can also use Yammer to send you email notifications so you can keep on top of things. Now, again, I find a lot of resistance to people using Yammer, but the thing I'll point out here is if you want assistance with Office 365, not only have you got 75,000 resellers and users in this Office 365 network, but importantly, you have Microsoft people monitoring it. You have the Office 365 teams looking at this, watching what's going on and answering questions. So again, something you're not involved with already certainly should be as part of your business as a great resource. But what about setting up something similar for a business? What else could they do? How could they communicate and work with customers outside their organization rather than bouncing emails backwards and forwards? The last one that I want to talk about is particularly Power BI. Okay, so as I said, Excel is on every desktop. There wouldn't be a desktop in this world that probably doesn't have Excel. Right, Power BI is a free add-in to Office 365. It comes with every tenant and it is free. If you've looked at the application launcher, all the programs available in Office 365, you'll see a Power BI logo there. Sooner or later, the clients are going to discover it. What's this do? How does this do it? And the tool's pretty cool, so it's not going to take them long to be able to set them up themselves. So my advice to you is get in there early, start building stuff, and importantly, show people what they can achieve. This is a great talking point when you do a demo. And the data analysis with the Internet of Things growing, with more and more devices spitting out information constantly, there's this need to analyze it. So again, think of going in as a business consultant, working with their modeling, determining the best model, how to display information. Again, that's IP that you can't generally replicate, you can't easily copy. That's your IP, and generally you can apply that from organization to organization. And the most powerful thing about the new tools is the ability to connect with services like MailChimp, Google Analytics. So that means at the very least, if you have a customer who has a website that is using Google Analytics, you can use Power BI to pull that data in and give them web analysis and web trends far beyond what they're currently doing now. So again, at the very least, and they're running a website with Google Analytics, you should be doing this to show them the power of what's possible. So here's an example that is available in Power BI as a demo. This is their sales analysis or the retail analysis. And again, if you show this result to any finance person, managing director, line item manager, they're just going to be blown away. What you can achieve with Power BI quickly and easily is amazing. So think of all the power that you can get with Excel, what's possible with the analysis in pivot tables, and then taking it to the next level graphically with something like Power BI. But again, stop, look around, have a think, look at your peers. Who do you know is doing Power BI? Right, there's probably no one that you know that's out there doing that. So it's most critical that here we're talking about greenfields here. Here's an opportunity for some partners to grab the opportunity there and basically run with it and become the Power BI expert, because every business, large and small, needs data analysis. So to bring an end to my little section of this, remember that Office 365 is a platform. It's just not an email server. It's just not hosted email. Okay, this platform grows, this platform improves, this platform gets more and more stuff like Azure. As I said, you need to add value. Don't just buy the product and look for commissions on licenses. Forget that. That just makes no sense at all in this day and age. Add the value. Build your offerings around it. Enable archiving, enable legal hold. What else can you do in email? Right, if we've done everything we can in email, what more can we do in SharePoint or Power BI? Right, you need to be more than a one-hit wonder. An email migration is a one-shot deal these days. When they're all migrated to the cloud, that's it. There's not going to be any more email migrations. How do you add value around just emails? Generally, emails just work these days. Okay, how do you actually make revenue beyond just doing traditional email migrations? Again, as I mentioned, all the options of the service. Just in email alone, you've got archiving, legal hold, DLP, security, compliance. Think about that in the service you're already doing and maybe not taking an opportunity of what else can be done in the other services. Remember, you don't have to do it all. Look to partner with people. If you want to specialize in compliance, if you want to specialize in e-discovery, let everybody know. Let your resellers, your peers know. Sell that service. Make it easy for them to sell you into their business. Give you both an opportunity. Again, there's whole packages, whole specializations that can be built and sold and then worked with a reseller network to get value for everybody. All right, you need to go out there and show that you know these products. It looks really bad if someone walks in to a client of yours that has Office 365 and says, oh, did you know you can do this with Power BI, blah, 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 and then the client's blown away in 2 or 3 seconds. Okay, so craft your demos, make sure that the clients know that you're the person that's on top of all this. And I'll come back to my initial statement. I think there has been never more opportunity than there is today. It's a case of most people, well, I just want to do email migration. How do I move beyond that? Well, I can tell you, hopefully with all the products that I've shown you, hopefully with all the information I've given you, you can see the opportunity and you dive in there and grab it with both hands. So, Greg, I think that's my little piece done, and I think it's over to you now.
It is, Robert. Thank you very much. I will say one thing I'd like to, you mentioned about partnering. There's another Yammer community of Office 365 partners, and it's not quite as large as the combined group, but I believe it's up to about 18,000. And these are 18,000 experts really that focus on one or more areas of 365. Just looking for ways to communicate, and it's global, and it's a very active community. So I'm a big fan of Yammer. It allows you to extend your reach far beyond just the 4 walls of your company. So thanks for highlighting that. Okay, so with that, a little bit of real quick housekeeping. In the messages button on the bottom left-hand side of your screen, if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and jot them down if you haven't done so already. I will tell you, just because of the timing of the session and the amount of content that we're looking to share, we're really not going to be in a position to answer them. However, we will be getting back to everybody, so everything that gets submitted will be responded to, and it will be done within the next, I'd say within the next 48 hours, so sit tight on that. And then when we're done with the session here, there will be a very, very brief survey, but I promised initially, there are no commercials. None of this is about particular providers. We're just talking about functionality, and even more important, really, what doesn't exist within these services. So with that, I get to talk about one of my favorite topics really in the industry, and it's Skype for Business. And you know, when Lync first rolled out, I was working in the collaboration space, and I was concerned because it was truly positioned to be something disruptive, not because it was doing anything radically different than any of the other services. You know, you could share your screen, you could communicate, you could IM, nothing radically different. What was different is it was fully integrated with, it wasn't a siloed solution, you know, some of the other services that are out there today that are market leading solutions. What's different is it's fully integrated, and it allows right now a unified communications experience. We're going to talk about exactly what that means. So I look at Skype. For initially it was Lync, and then there was Skype, the two different parties. And I look at the union of the two of them really as a power couple, and they were both industry leaders in their own right. With Lync having, you know, over $1 billion in revenue, 5 million, which may sound like a lot, but we're going to talk about that in a second, enterprise voice seats deployed. We're going to talk specifically about voice and how that plays in with Skype for Business. And on the Lync side, you have over 300 million users. So it's truly a widely accepted, very familiar interface. So that adds value. When people, you know, when Microsoft bought Skype, I know there were a lot of raised eyebrows trying to figure out how that would play out. But in the end, what it did is it took the solution, which had proven itself as an effective communication tool with Lync in the larger enterprise, and now suddenly brings that downstream. The good news about that is that's where many of us play. You know, many partners play in the small, medium-sized businesses. Lync wasn't as widely adopted at those levels. It was much more widely adopted in the large enterprise. So that, to me, when that new interface came out, the Skype for Business interface, definitely spelled opportunity for everybody in the channel. So what do we get? You know, that power couple, what was the offspring? Well, it was something with a familiar interface and the massive reach, where we already had an audience of 300 million connected users, and an interface that was very simple, right? And it's really, you're looking at it now. It's not quite as sterile as the Lync interface that was originally rolled out, yet still has, it leveraged the security and stability that had become the benchmark and really the key features of Lync. So in the end, everybody wins. The end user wins because they're getting an interface that they're used to, they're comfortable with the security of the Lync interface the Lync platform that they may have had little or no exposure to previously. So let's take a look. Here's what they look like. On the left, you'll see Lync, the old, I think I may already said sterile, so it kind of is it's just kind of a whitewashed look, a little bit more stark. Whereas the Skype interface, a little bit cleaner, a little bit nicer, a little bit more friendly. But ultimately, the functionality is largely the same. I think one of the most important or material changes is the buttons for the control buttons. They're much more easier to find and access in the Lync client than they used to be. And everyone knows the Lync, the moniker, the little Skype with the presence. We're going to talk about presence in a little bit, why that's so important. So this is the one on the right is what we're looking at today. That's the new interface. Why does this matter, right? Why should we, in the channel, why should we care about what Skype is doing and what Microsoft's doing? Well, let's just look at the sheer scale, right? Just looking at the numbers, and these come from Microsoft. Lync voice users, I already mentioned this one a little bit quickly, 5 million. So that may sound like a lot, but not when you look at the number of Office users. Now, these are not Office 365. Office as a whole there are 1 billion licenses. Now, Microsoft actually doesn't release the number of Office 365 licenses, but I've seen speculation, I've seen projections putting it somewhere in the 80 million range, and it's just growing exponentially. So it's clearly a rising tide. What that means to me is all of these, we're going to look at this platform. We're going to see, as this platform's growing, well, what else can we add to that platform? Because clearly it doesn't do everything. And that's where we're going to dive into some of these voice features. And again, Skype, the fact that Skype for Business will federate, and you can actually reach into the bucket of Skype users, personal Skype, consumer Skype users, and connect with them through your business Skype. It just makes the communication, globally pretty simple and pretty seamless. Okay, so we've talked about just briefly what Skype is, what it can do. it's a unified communications platform in its native state where you can send an email, you can send you can have a video chat, you can IM, you can have a conference call. But what is it not? So natively, it does not include the ability to dial in PSTN, your regular old phone number, to dial into a conference bridge. So that's where a potential add-on might be a hybrid bridge. Hybrid meaning partial VoIP, voice over IP, and partial PSTN, regular telephone number. So here's how that looks. Today in Skype natively, it's a full VoIP conference, and it's high quality, it's high definition audio. The requirement is, you're going to need to have a headset. You're going to need to be connected to your computer. If you can do that, it's a great experience. What if you can't? And you'll notice on the screen, it says with lync, you can make a VoIP call. So still to this day, there is some interchangeability between lync and Skype for Business. More and more people are starting to move away from lync. However, there's a lot of the overlap still going on. But what happens if somebody is on the road and they just have their cell phone and there's a call going on, they can't access it? Well, that's where PSTN access comes in. That's where a hybrid bridge comes in, being able to provide a regular phone number, give them the caller the ability to dial it, add a passcode, and connect right to that call. What does that mean? What's the advantage of that? Well, in a hybrid environment, it's going to allow the customer to take advantage of the lower cost or the included voice over IP, the Skype to Skype service. So those connections, everybody internal, no cost. It's completely included, free of charge. Then those that are on the outside, when they're dialing in, those are the only ones that are going to be metered. So they will be paying per minute, but that's it. So theoretically, if you think about it, a customer that's using Office 365 and may or may not be using Skype and using a third-party conferencing service, well, they're pretty much being double dipped. They're paying for that conferencing service as well. If they integrate with Skype, then a lot of that traffic will be able to run over Skype, pull it off of the third-party provider, cutting their bill, theoretically 50, 60, maybe 80%. The other good side, the advantage of adding a hybrid bridge is really they're going to get more participation. Remember the person I mentioned that's out on the street, out on the road warrior that's not able to get into that meeting. He or she's in the car. Well, now they can actually get into that meeting as well. So there's greater accessibility and lower cost. So what do the features look like of a hybrid conference? So you can generally, these are in general terms, you get about 150 people into those calls. So they'll be able to dial in from anywhere in the world. There's international access to get into that meeting. There's VoIP, so they can use the native client, a toll number if they want, toll-free number, and an international number. So really, there's no limitation for gaining access to a Skype meeting anymore once you've deployed a hybrid bridge. And it's simply integrated into the service via the admin portal. The phone number and passcode is manually entered in. I say manual. It could also be imported with spreadsheets, which that's a job where an MSP may step in or a partner may step in or can help guide the IT manager or the telecom manager through that process. And then what will happen once it's integrated, there's an email. You would send an email just like you normally would. Here's an example. So this was just a sample of my screen. You would click on Skype meeting and automatically, natively, what's going to include is that link at the top where it says join Skype meeting. Once you have a hybrid bridge that's been integrated, you would get that section there that's the green, and it's just basically your dial-in number and passcode, just like every other single conferencing bridge that the customer's ever used. There's no education required there. And you're just going to get greater accessibility and an incremental revenue stream. That's all metered. That's all billed per minute, paid per minute. Okay, so let's say the customer is ready to move upstream. They want to take their communications. Their phone system is aged, or they're not happy with a phone service that they have. Maybe they've already gone to the cloud, but their first experience wasn't really what they were hoping for, and they're looking for a change. Well, once they tell you that they're an Office 365 customer, that's telling you an awful lot. And they're saying they're a Microsoft customer, so they're already a prime candidate for enterprise voice. Now, when I say enterprise voice, basically that's just taking their their Skype service, which is obviously integrated in Office 365, and turning it into a phone system. So it's a hosted platform. So we're going to look, there's a couple of different options today. There can be an on-premise deployment of Lync where they actually have Lync or Skype for Business servers on-premise at the corporation. That's usually done at the larger enterprise level. There's hybrid where somebody might be running the customer, maybe running Office 365, but then they may have a local device on premise to connect their dial tone for their phone service. But what we're going to do is we're going to focus on hosted, because hosted is going to allow the customer to fully leverage, right? The topic of today is going beyond the license and trying to make the Office 365 license as fully functional as possible, a more comprehensive solution for the customer, and really a business model for the partner. So we're going to focus on hosted. How does that work? Well, Skype for Business, again, is a part of Office 365, as well as Exchange. So the Exchange is going to remain, the email remains in the cloud, it remains as a part of Office 365. What will happen, though, there are providers, third parties, that have said, I have my own servers, I have my own Skype for Business licenses that I'm pulling on premise, and I'm going to light them up with voice. I'm going to add dial tone to them. And then I'm going to do it in a multi-tenant fashion where I'm going to give pieces of it. I'm going to partition it out and sell subscriptions to my customers. So at the end of the day, you're able to purchase, a customer has a license, an enterprise class E3 or E4 license. They can leverage that, add dial tone to it, thus making their 365 not just the productivity workhorse that Robert's already showed us that it could be, but it's also their full-blown telecom and unified communications platform. So what does that look like feature-wise? So it automatically can be added as an overlay on the license itself. So this is the first you've seen, E5. That's because E5 is not even out yet. So E3 or E4 are the versions that support unified messaging, which we'll touch on in a second. There are some other providers. There are various little nuances and little hooks that these telecom providers have come up with to add voice to the Office 365 licenses. But generally speaking, if a customer has E3 or E4, the enterprise class licenses, then they can be they're viable for upgrading to add the dial tone and serve as a fully functioning hosted voice over IP telephony system. Now, E5 being brand new, Microsoft's rolling this out, and it has some integrated PSTN functionality as far as bridging as well as the enterprise voice. Now, what's likely going to play out is it's probably not going to have all of the features that a company that is specializing in this, that's focusing on enterprise voice and leveraging that platform to offer a hosted unified communications platform. But the way I look at it, it's another service. So what happens is Microsoft is now throwing their hat in the ring and saying, well, guess what? We're going to also offer some versions of voice, and it will be right for some customers and not for others. So the point is to really understand this, know what's available to the consumer. So, when you're consulting with them, you're going to give them the best solution possible. Yeah, it's basically, it's fully functioning. That becomes the phone service for the customer. So if they have a system they're using today that they're just not really happy with, but they're comfortable with cloud telephony, which most are, once you've given up the hardware on-prem, it's going to be really, really hard to get them to go back. Not that you'd want them to. This does complete the UC offering. So natively, it does include voicemail, email. You're able to, I take that back, let me rephrase that, not voicemail natively. It will include email, IM, video chat, basically all of the communications, the Skype to Skype calls, so you have the phone calls going back and forth. That's all native. It's free, completely included with the licensure. But if you can't tie in a regular phone or any other type of PSTN access where somebody can call a phone number and get you, then it's somewhat limiting a little bit for your audience. So by adding enterprise voice, it completes that, so you truly have a comprehensive unified communications offering. Now, unified messaging is basically going to allow the voicemails to go to email and be translated, and vice versa. So just the back and forth flowing of the data between email and voicemail, just to have the most efficient and easiest access to that information for the end user. There's nothing better than being in a meeting just like we are right now and having to have it run over and you get stuck. Now, by using Skype, you're able to simply just with a click of a button, you can transfer it to another device, flip it out to the audio out to your cell phone, close your laptop, and you still remain on the call and you're on your way. So it's very, very flexible for the end user. So what does this look like? It's quite similar to what I showed you before. Basically you just go in, and once it's fully integrated, you would just click on Skype meeting, and then what pops up is a little bit different, a little bit more comprehensive than what you saw previously. The native Skype meeting, join the Skype meeting link for the Skype to Skype component. And then down below, you'll see a series of phone numbers, and this looks different depending on the provider. It may be a single number, a toll and a toll-free, or it may have a global list of phone numbers. International access is available. It just depends on which provider the customer decides to partner with. And there are a few that have really excelled in this particular space. But at the end of the day, this is what it looks like. The deliverable is an email with the link to connect by Skype or dial a phone number, and you're going to get to the exact same place. And here's what it looks like today. Very, very current, very, very modern, and extremely easy to use. It's extremely easy to navigate. So what does all this mean? We want to, the whole goal for us to be here is really not just to kill an hour. It's really to learn how could we augment our business model, and at the same time, obviously, and adding value to our customer. So what this is going to do by adding the enterprise voice, it's going to complete the entire package. So now adding the voice, adding a phone number access for everything that we're doing about, it adds another really level of access, and it just makes it a more comprehensive solution. Without PSTN, you're somewhat limited if you can't get to it with a regular phone. Mobility. Now, this is a great point where if you have road warriors, then they really probably don't even need a phone. And with this service, you don't need. With Skype itself, you don't need to have a phone if you don't want. You can use the native client. It sits right on your desktop, on your laptop, on your screen. You can use that fully functioning without any type of hardware. However, if the customer wants it, obviously there are providers out there to help augment that so they can move seamlessly between the desktop and the cell phone. In my opinion, what really ties all of this together, these are all great tools. Everything that Robert was talking about, everything that I mentioned as far as Skype, I think they're all great tools. But what the unifying piece, the overlying component, is the fact that there's a rich presence. Meaning, when I'm in a meeting, it's going to tell my audience that I'm in a meeting. So when somebody clicks on, if we're connected by Skype, if we're federated, there's a little, like right now, there's a little red dot saying, Greg can't be reached, he's in a conference call, he's in a meeting. That tells you when somebody's available. And if you're trying to get a hold of somebody and for some reason you just can't ever get them, you're playing phone tag, once you're connected, you can even tag it. So you could say, when this person's status changes, let me know. So if you're waiting to get a hold of your boss, or you're waiting to get a hold of a subordinate, simply click on that, tag them. As soon as their availability changes and they're available, you get notified and you get on with your business that quickly. So it's the presence is truly one of those components that really ties all of this together. And really, at the end of the day, it's about saving your customer. Of course, you want to increase their functionality and make them more productive. But ultimately, at the same time, they want more and they want it for cheaper, right? They want to be able to realize the savings. So here's an example. In real rough round numbers, a customer can get an Office 365 license, integrate the enterprise voice, so it's the full-blown unified communications platform. And this is all SaaS-based, right? We're only talking cloud. We're not talking about anything on-premise, any hardware. Basically for the cost of a WebEx license. So that's why people are interested today. Now, there are many, many other enhancements, and I'm going to be wrapping up here. I see what time it is. What we can do is we can add, there are other companies that have created businesses and services specifically to address the weaknesses that are not addressed by 365 or Skype for Business. There are call center portals that are designed specifically with call queues and average speed of answer and reporting that's required in a call center. Attendant, if you have somebody, a receptionist, Lync itself is not the most user-friendly for that, so there are companies that have created interfaces specifically for that. Today is a prime example. We've used a service that will allow for registration. So you can have a registration tool, send out surveys, send out email campaigns, all leveraging the lync technology. On with that is the streaming. So many today want to be able to stream their content to audiences of thousands. That's also available with a few of the services that have been introduced to the industry. Recording, that is one, in my opinion, that's one of Skype's weaknesses, because when you can record very, very easily, the difficulty is really managing that recording. So there are services out there, the one we're using today actually will host that, make it very easy to share the recording, which is a good lead in to let you know you will be getting the recording for today's session. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. We are right now exactly at the top of the hour. On the screen, you will see the contact information for Robert and for myself. And we certainly welcome any form of communication, any questions, comments, concerns, ideas. This is, as Robert pointed out, Office 365 is a platform, right? This is something that can be built upon. And we're here to, this is really what we do, and love delivering the message. We will be in Redmond in a few weeks at the beginning of October, so hopefully maybe see some of you out there, and just welcome any communication, any ideas, or just any way we can help out. So thank you very much for your time. There is a survey to end this session that once you log out, you'll see that, and feel free to reach out at any point with any questions. Thank you once again, and have a great day.